The Sugar Bowl matchup between Alabama and Kansas State will get underway tomorrow morning at 11 on ESPN. We're here to talk about that on this episode of Tide Talk Live. Welcome back in, everybody, to another episode of Tide Talk Live. Stacey Blackwood, joined as always by my good buddy Jake Thomas for the last time for the college football season here in 2022. A little bit of a sad note, but Jake, a lot to look forward to, a lot to dissect as we look at this Sugar Bowl matchup between Alabama and Kansas State. First of all, brother, how you doing? And I know you're excited about that game tomorrow.
Man, I am super excited, pumped. It's been like a month since we had any kind of Alabama football. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to dissect it, and overall, I'm doing great, man. How are you guys doing?
We're great. Both Jake and myself, our families have kind of been hit with sickness over the last week, so the content's been down a little bit, but we're on the mend and getting better and better as the days go by. But Jake, before we dive too deep into this, first of all, as always, make sure you like this video, share the video, subscribe to our channel. That really helps us out tremendously. And then jump in the comment section and answer our question of the day. And it's really not a question. We just want you to give us your score predictions for the matchup between Alabama and Kansas State in the Allstate Sugar Bowl down there in New Orleans. Jake, the team has been down there since Monday, I believe. They've been practicing. Coach Saban seems to be really pleased with the way the team is kind of prepared for this matchup. Of course, we talked about how Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr., and all those other draft-eligible players decided not to opt out, to play in this game, play one more time for the Crimson Tide, wear that crimson helmet with the white letters on it. Jake, first of all, I know it's not the playoff, but there's still a lot to be excited about in this matchup, Jake. It's a New Year's Six Bowl, and it's one more opportunity for this team to kind of silence the doubters, Jake. There's people out there, both within the Alabama fan base and on the outside looking in, that believe that the Nick Saban dynasty there in Tuscaloosa is dying. And, neither one of us believe that to be true. But I think that's what I'm looking forward to most, Jake, is it's an opportunity for these guys to kind of come out and prove that, no, the dynasty's not dead. It's still living, and there's still a lot that Alabama can prove moving forward.
Absolutely, brother. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, but it just shows the character that both not only for Bryce and Will Anderson, but for the entire draft eligible tees to actually play in this game, because it shows that their character, they care about the team. It's not about me, it's about the team. I'm really excited about that. So, I'm glad that they have come back. But for this game, I'm with you. I'm excited to see, how it's going to play out. First off, I think, the biggest question is, this will be Bryce and Will's last time to play at Alabama. Second is, it's probably going to be the last time we have Bill O'Brien as offense coordinator. So how is he going to scheme up things? How is he going to get the guys in position to make the plays and overall to get this big win? And I do think Alabama overall is going to win big in this game.
Yeah, great synopsis, Jake. It's just and Coach Saban's kind of talked about it ever since the season ended, and they kind of found out, where they would be playing for the bowl game, and they didn't make the playoff. He talked about opportunities,
right?
And Jake, this is just the next opportunity, and Bryce Young, Will Anderson, all those guys that could have opted out like most everybody else did in the country. And, props to Kansas State too, Jake. They have a few guys that probably could have opted out and not played in this game, but they're going to play because, it's important. It's a great opportunity to play one more time with your teammates and for the fan base and for the people that really support the program. So I'm excited about that aspect of the game. And I'm just really looking forward to watching Bryce Young and Will Anderson play one more time for Alabama. And I know that's kind of a selfish way for me to look at it, but I mean, players like Bryce and Will don't come around very often. So I'm just excited to see those guys one more time.
Yeah, I agree, man. We talked about it, how Bryce Bryce Young and Will Anderson both were a once in a generational top talents that have come through. And I mean, it's kind of funny because the last couple of quarterbacks come through Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa, he was one as well that we said was a once in a generational top quarterback. But there's something special about Bryce that makes me. I love Tua and all that, and I love Mac. I love Jalen Hurts. I love all the guys that come through. But there's something about Bryce Young, that I've just, been enthralled, enamored with, because he's just a special player and he gives 110% on the field each and every game.
Yeah, I know we throw the term around greatest of all time way too much, regardless of what sport we're talking about or what athlete we're talking about.
Yeah.
But he's up there, Jake. He is on the Mount Rushmore of Alabama football players, of Alabama athletes in general. And he's just a once in a lifetime top player. And the way that he just carries himself in such a humble manner, it makes it that much more. It makes him that much more likable. And he's just a special kid. And I'm super excited to see him play one more time for Alabama, and then obviously follow his NFL career that I'm sure is going to be long and very impressive as well. So excited to get to see him and Will Anderson compete one more time for Alabama before they move on to bigger things in the future. But Jake, before we really dissect the matchup too much, we got to tell the folks about BetUS.
Yeah.
Click the link in the description below, follow that link, and sign up today on BetUS. On that first deposit that you make, you receive 125% bonus on that deposit. So if you deposit $100, they're going to give you $125 extra. It's free money, so I don't know what you're waiting for. Follow the link in the description below and sign up today. Jake, let's just look at this matchup. When Kansas State has the football, Jake, obviously they got Deuce Vaughn, Will Howard, maybe Adrian Martinez, Malik Knowles out wide. They have weapons on that side of the football, Jake, and they can make plays. They're a really good offensive team. They play a physical brand of football, despite the running back only being about 5'6", 170 pounds. Like Coach Saban said, he's maybe pound for pound the most competitive player in all of college football, and I can't doubt that. I can't question that. And I can't debate that. So when you look at Kansas State offensively and how Alabama matches up with those guys, what do you think is the key for Alabama when the Wildcats have the football?
It is, just play aggressive defense, stay within, stay with your guy or in your zone where you're at. Kansas State, if you look at their stats, they're a balanced team. Honestly, they're averaging 209 yards rushing. You round up to 210, and they're averaging 211 yards a game passing. So, I mean, they are a very balanced team. And Deuce Vaughn, he's going to get his touches. And, I mean, they got playmakers on that, on that offense. So, we just got to play Bama football. Defensively, as bad as everybody wants to talk about how bad the defense has been, and honestly, it's not up to the Bama standard we used to. But, I mean, honestly, 186 yards allowed, pass yards allowed, and only 125 rushing yards allowed. Man, I can live with that. I just now saw that. I'm like, man, the defenses don't get a lot of credit, but they're not as bad as we make it out to be. Yeah, there were some games that they did falter, but this defense is still pretty daggone good, and I expect that great defense to come out in this matchup.
Yeah, when you look at Alabama defensively, Jake, for the majority of every game and for the majority of all the games, they're a really good defense. But they had a lapse, pretty much the entire contest against Tennessee. And then they had a late collapse against LSU, Jake, when Bryce Young and Ja'Cory Brooks take the lead for Alabama, and all the defense had to do was get a stop, and they couldn't do it. They allowed a couple late third down conversions. So it's been situational football defensively for Alabama that's been lacking, and also just late game execution. And I think that's what has Alabama fans so kind of up in arms about Pete Golden and the Alabama defense. And Pete Golden was asked yesterday if he plans on being back in Tuscaloosa for 2023, and he said, "Yeah, I'm under contract, so I plan on being there." So that's a pretty blunt answer, and he didn't mix his words there. And if he's under contract, he's got a great point. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. And But Jake, I'm with you. I think that offense runs through Deuce Vaughn and what he can do for the Wildcats. Will Howard has played really good at quarterback since Adrian Martinez has been out. But Martinez is available for this game. Colin Klein mentioned, their offensive coordinator mentioned yesterday, that he expects both to play in some capacity. I imagine Howard's going to get the majority of the reps, and Martinez will be used more in a situational type package. But both players are really good. Both players, the offense is just, it's centered around how they can utilize Deuce Vaughn. And also a guy that hasn't got talked about near as much as Malik Knowles, their wide receiver, number 4, Jake. I think the key to the game for Alabama, look, Deuce Vaughn is going to get his touches, and every once in a while he's going to, spurt out of the hole and pick up 15 yards. It's about limiting the number of those times that happens. And then the biggest thing to me is not letting Malik Knowles or any of those other Kansas State receivers beat you deep for a big play. Jake, if Alabama can play really good defense between the 20s, and then obviously they're usually pretty good inside the red zone, I think Alabama's defense is going to be just fine. It's just limiting the explosive plays from Kansas State. Don't let Deuce Vaughn bust a 60-yarder. Don't let Malik Knowles get over the top on you. And I think this Alabama defense will be just fine.
I agree 100%. We talked before we got on, and we feel like this is going to be kind of like a Washington Alabama game a few years ago. It just has that feel, but I think Alabama can score more than that team did. I just don't. I don't want to say I can see it happening because I don't want to get cocky, but I can see this defense not shutting out Kansas State, but coming out and making a big statement and only giving up maybe 17 to 21 points in this game to Kansas State and that explosive offense. I can just see that happening because Alabama, they have nothing to lose. I mean, we know our fate. We're in this bowl, and this is a good time to show off what we have coming back for next year.
Jake, you just made a great point that I don't think a lot of people have thought about. I certainly hadn't really thought about this aspect of it, but you can tell this team this entire season for Alabama has played with a little bit of anxiety. I know Will Anderson used that word earlier this year, but now they have no reason to be anxious, Jake. Their fate has been decided.
Right.
Now it's just about going out and executing this game, and nothing else matters. And so I think the external factors being removed from this situation is not going to do anything but help Alabama execute at a much higher rate. And so I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's an important factor that not a lot of people are talking about. And yeah, defensively, Alabama is more than capable of coming out and holding Kansas State to 20 or less. And I expect Alabama to hold them to around that number. I'll give my official score prediction here in just a minute, but I'm excited to see this defense play one more time this year. And it's going to be a little bit different, Jake. Jalen Moody's going to be out. Deontay Lawson has been filling in for him, but he's also been banged up a little bit this week. He's been on the bicycle throughout a lot of the viewing period during practice time. So we could see a situation where maybe a freshman Jihad Campbell or freshman Murphy get some reps there beside Henry To'oTo'o. So that's going to be something to watch out for when Alabama's on the defensive side of the football. But Jake, let's move now to when Alabama has the ball. Bryce Young, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ja'Cory Brooks, Jermaine Burton, all those guys on the offensive side of the ball. What do you think is the key for Alabama when they attack this Kansas State defense?
I think the biggest thing is to play within yourself and just go out and have fun. I can't say that enough, especially for potentially Jahmyr Gibbs, Bryce Young, Will Anderson, guys like that, but just go out and have fun. Our fate's been decided. This is our, where we're at. Just go out and play your game. And if you play Alabama football, you play within yourself, you're going to score a lot of points. And I expect Jahmyr Gibbs to have a big day because I don't think that defensive front for Kansas State can hold up in the trenches against our big boys on the offensive line. I think they're going to get pushed around pretty good bit, and I think they're going to have some running holes for Jahmyr Gibbs, for Jace, for Wardell, guys like that is going to have a big game.
Yeah, I agree that Kansas State's defensive front is a little light in the britches compared to what Alabama brings up front with those guys. And I think you could see an offensive game plan in this matchup similar to what we saw last year against Cincinnati in the semifinal matchup, where we just ran on the shoulders of Brian Robinson.
Right.
And we don't really have a Brian Robinson top back this year. It'll be more of a 1-2 punch between Gibbs and McClellan. And I think you could see those two guys really rack up some yards, especially when you get into the third quarter and really into the fourth quarter of this matchup. And Alabama tries to, maybe ice this game. And you see, those 5 to 6 yard runs for Gibbs turn into, a maybe 60-yard run, or maybe a 70-yard run. So I think, like you mentioned, Jake, for 4 quarters, I'm not sure Kansas State's defensive front can really hold up against this physical offensive line from Alabama.
Yeah, I agree. That right there is, to me, is where the game's going to be won at. It's going to be in the trenches, and either on both sides of the ball, Alabama just matches up a lot better than Kansas State. So defensive line, I think they're going to contain Kansas State offensive line and probably get some pressure on Howard and Martinez if he's playing. And offensively for Alabama, I think they just make holes in that line. And like you said, if we get the ball starting there the fourth quarter, I can see a long, drawn-out series of a 12 to 15 play, just maybe 7-8 minutes run off the clock just to run the clock down. I could see that happen in this game.
Yeah, and what a way that would be to kind of end this season, Jake. That's been, a disappointment for Alabama standards, not making it to the playoff, but to kind of end it in an old school Alabama way.
Yeah.
Finishing off Kansas State with a long physical ground game to wrap up the contest. But yeah, Jake, Bryce Young, Kansas State has a really good back end. They play a lot of drop 8 coverage, so their defensive game plan is probably going to be to not let Bryce Young beat them through the air or over the top. And, we Alabama hadn't really had that over the top guy this season. But I think the receivers, with this time off between the Auburn game and now, I am almost willing to guarantee that the chemistry between them and Bryce Young is much better than it had been the entire season. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I imagine that K-State's going to do their best to make Alabama push them around up front for 4 quarters instead of just letting Bryce Young stay back there and have a field day against the secondary.
Yeah, Bryce, he comes in a good situation because, we have talked about, it feels like he's been hurt much of the season. Chemistry, we know he hadn't practiced, so like you said, the chemistry hadn't been there with the wide receivers, but we know who's coming back wide receiver-wise next year. We're going to have those stud freshmen coming back. We got stud freshmen coming in. Jameer Burton's is going to be back, and he's becoming a good target for Bryce. And Ja'Cory Brooks, who's been a great target all year for Bryce as well. So we've got those guys in this game. So the chemistry this week and this month, I just know has just been growing a little bit. So we may not have a guy that we can send over the top to open up the game, but I figure the middle of the field on little slants out, in routes are going to be there in a field day all day for Bryce and Burton and Brooks and guys like that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Bill O'Brien's game plan is against Kansas State and how he kind of attacks that 3-3 stack defense that the Wildcats like to run. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see, and I'm certainly excited about the contest. And Jake, before we get to our score predictions, like we said, make sure you're subscribed to our channel, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. Mm-hmm. Make sure you share this episode on Facebook, Twitter, all your Alabama Facebook groups. It'd be great for you to share us there. And also follow the link in the description and sign up for BetUS today and receive that 125% bonus on that first deposit. Jake, look, we've been talking for 15, 20 minutes about, this game and previewing it. We both feel like Alabama is the better team. They're obviously more talented from top to bottom. They obviously have the coaching advantage with Nick Saban on the sideline. So,
right.
All indications are that Alabama should win this game. Vegas has Alabama favorite, by 7 points, which, may surprise some people. Maybe not. You can't forget Kansas State did win the Big 12 championship. They did beat TCU, who is in the playoffs. So they're no slouch. They're a really good football team. They're well coached. They know who they are. That's an important thing in games like this. So, Jake, with all that being said, with all we've said, kind of building up to this moment, Jake, just kind of give us your quick synopsis of how you think the game's going to play out, and then finally your score prediction.
Well, one thing is I want to say real quick is, Sonny Dykes, what he said about the SEC, but anyway, that's irrelevant. But I think how this is going to play out. It's going to start out kind of slow for me. I think beginning of the game, and I think eventually Alabama gets on the board and they start getting rolling. I think it's just going to be like a juggernaut, two heavyweight fighters fighting, first couple of rounds just to fill each other out, and then Alabama finally gets their feet wet, gets set, and gets going. And I think in the third and fourth quarter, depth's going to take over. The trenches are going to be a huge factor, and late in the game, third, fourth quarter, and I think Alabama ultimately wins this game 48-24 is what I'm saying.
I really like that pick, Jake, and I like how you think the game's going to play out. I can really see that too. Early on in the contest, both teams just kind of trying to figure out and get a feel of how this game's going to play out, and I really can see that happening. I'm anxious to see, if Kansas State wins the coin toss. Do they defer to the second half, or do they want to take the ball and see what they can do against this Alabama defense? Because I think whoever scores first is really going to go a long way in determining who wins this football game. And I say that because, if Kansas State scores first, they have that mindset, hey, we can play with these guys. We can beat these guys. And I think they already have that mindset, but getting that extra bump of motivation would help them. If Alabama gets the ball first, Jake, and they march right down the field, get a touchdown, then get a 3 and out or something like that, Jake, things can change drastically. And momentum swings are huge in football and in any sport. And so I think it's really interesting to see who gets the ball first and kind of what happens there. But I'm with you. I'm more in the mindset that it's probably going to be, really kind of back and forth, really slow moving over the first several minutes of this contest. But throughout the game, Jake, Alabama just got too much, Jake. Right. Bryce Young's too good. Will Anderson is too good. Jameer Gibbs is too good. Ja'Cory Brooks, Jermaine Burton. Those guys are just too much for this Kansas State team. And Alabama pulls away at the end. And I think Kansas State maybe scored a touchdown really late in garbage time to make the game look closer than what it actually is. I think Alabama wins this game 38-21. But I think, like I mentioned, Kansas State gets that last touchdown, with just a minute or two left to make it look a little better than what it actually was.
Yeah, I agree. I think Alabama, overall, they are the more talented team. And I just don't think – I know Kansas State has a elite offense, but they've not seen an elite offense themselves this year, in my honest opinion, like Alabama has. So – I think Alabama, if they get rolling, like you said, if Alabama gets the ball first, marches down the field, and then on defense gets 3 and out, then Kansas State's like, oh boy, it could be like that. They're like, oh gosh, it's fixing to unravel, and it could be 21-0 just like that, and it's still, it's still 5 minutes left to go in the first quarter. I mean, it could get that ugly real quick.
Yeah, so we both feel like Alabama covers that 7-point spread really by a good bit more than that. But I think Alabama, regardless of what happens, wins by at least 2 touchdowns in this matchup. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like Alabama kind of reasserts themselves as one of the most dominant teams in college football. And I think once this game concludes and once we see what happens in the playoffs, people are going to be using that hindsight 2020 theory of, yeah, we probably should have put Alabama in.
Yeah, and I don't want to take away from the players that are playing, but we have got to see what the future looks like a little bit this week in the practice because of the new guys coming in. Caleb Downs is everything that they say and more. He's looked really good. Eli Holstein's looked really good.
Justice Haynes
has looked really good. I mean, we're talking about Saban, the dynasty's dying. I'm sorry, I hate to tell you, but it's not with this coming in.
I hate to break your hearts, but Saban might have just hauled in the best recruiting class in Alabama history. So Alabama's not going anywhere. Really I hate to use the word disappointing. They got 10 wins and playing in the Sugar Bowl.
I know it,
but it didn't meet the standard. And I don't think it's going to stay that way very long.
And he arguably probably pulled in the best running back class he's ever had too. I mean, Richard Young. God,
Hey, and
Sorry,
another guy
college football.
that's there already practicing, Jake, is Wilkin Formby. He
Yeah,
already looks like an SEC left tackle.
yeah, he does.
It's incredible. I don't know where these guys how they grow people like this, but it's incredible. But Nick Saban just continues to bring him in, and the dynasty's not dead, and it's not even slowing down. So you just got to deal with it if you're not an Alabama fan.
Sorry, college football. I think you pissed off the old man because he just went out and just got his best class ever. And it's like, I'll teach y'all.
Yeah, and Jake, before we go, last night during his show, he mentioned the guys that entered the portal. Jake, there's no more blinking lights, and he has such a clever way with words. And Jake, what he means by that is we have no more guys causing issues that it takes away from what the team needs to accomplish. And those guys are gone, Jake. And I think people who follow the team close enough probably know which couple of guys he's probably talking about there, because it's not all of them. It's just a couple of them. But I know exactly who he's talking about, and I'm glad. Look, I for one am glad they're gone. I do wish them the best. I hope they have great, successful careers.
Right.
But I'm glad they're gone from Alabama, and I think that Alabama's fixing to reignite the Saban dynasty, and I think that's going to start tomorrow against Kansas State.
Yeah, we had talked about I've talked about. I want us to get in the playoff, but I don't want to say I'm glad we didn't, but I'm afraid if we did, stuff like this would not have re-energized Saban, would not have, got some of these guys who are bad fruits to get off the team and bring in this group of guys and got them closer and have a team mentality. It's no more, when am I going to play, coach? Why am I not starting? Or get on Twitter, this and that. It's about the team. And this team now, all these players are about the team. And these changes are now happening that we needed for the last couple of years. And here we are.
Amen. Amen. I ain't got nothing to add to that. Amen. All right. Well, we're about to wrap it up, guys. Like we said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe today. Hit that notification bell and jump in the comments and give us your official score prediction for the Allstate Sugar Bowl between Alabama and Kansas State. And Jake, what else you got to add, buddy?
I just want to say about the channel, this new year, we got a lot of new things coming up. So be in tune for it. When we get everything worked out, we'll be letting you guys know. So stay tuned for it.
Yeah, we got some exciting things coming up for 2023. Cannot wait to kind of unveil all that to you guys. And certainly none of this is even possible without you, the viewers and the listeners. So we certainly appreciate you and really thankful that you kind of give us some of your time. And I mean, the most important thing that all of us have is time, and the fact that you're willing to spend, a couple of days a week with us to talk about Alabama athletics. It means the world to me. I know it does to Jake as well, and we're certainly very appreciative of that, and we cannot thank you guys enough. And just hope everybody has a happy New Year. Hope the Tide rolls tomorrow on New Year's Eve against Kansas State, gets 11 wins on the season, and just kind of reignites that Saban dynasty.
Absolutely, man. I'm ready for it. I know the boys are ready for it. No, you're ready for it. So, Happy New Year, guys. Let's go out and beat some Wildcat butt.
Yep. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Until next time, roll Tide.
Roll Tide.